Well, the speakers today have been amazing. You know, you've all had a little piece of the puzzle, and now we're going to open it up for questions. There have been some questions put into the chat, and one of the questions that I would like to ask first, and a few of you have alluded to it, is how many towers are going to be going up as a result of HB 2365, and also how many nationwide? I mean, I've heard estimates, but I'd like to, you know, get the experts to answer those questions on video. Anybody know?
You're on mute, Libby.
I've been looking at this for a long time, and there already are over 2 million cell towers in the United States that have been sited since, you know, the mid-90s. And those towers contain multiple antennas, sometimes 3 tiers of antennas. So that makes, you know, over 12 or so antennas per tower. And then a lot of big towers with multiple antennas. The small cell antennas, they predict at least 1 million. They only transmit a certain distance. So I understand like every 300 to 1,000 feet in order to provide signal coverage. And all of this is unregulated, as Lois so aptly described. We don't know what's coming. There's no way to find out what the projections are. I have a map that I was planning to show you that the city maintains that the industry uses to reserve spots in town. And that map, which it's in my slides, I'll send it to Pam, but it only describes what the industry is willing to tell us about. And that includes the streetlight antennas and the poles. And it also defines the historic poles and historic districts, because 2 or 3 historic districts have asked for historic poles, keep their historic poles, but that's an aesthetic concession. But there's no number of small cells, but when you consider the idea is to cover the planet with them, there would be a lot. And then on top of that, we have the satellites. The satellites are being launched now, and they are going to have downloads for satellites. This is Elon Musk's project. These satellites under FCC proposed rule will allow homeowners to contract directly to have one of these receiving dishes. They're not very big. They're not bigger than a Mixmaster, but they can be on their roof, and that could be right next door to you. So it will be receiving the signal and then providing signal to the neighborhood from satellite, part of the system. That's all I know right now in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think also it's clear it's every 100 meters, so every 3 houses worldwide is really the concept of the Internet of Things and the Internet of Bodies. I think China is leading the way, and you see the effects of that with the social conditioning, social engineering. Everything's being tracked. You can walk into a McDonald's and they already know what you're ordering from facial recognition. They say, oh, hello there, and you pay for it digitally. So this is already going on in China, and it needs to be mapped out every 100 meters. So at some point, we have to decide if we really want this.
That gets to another one of my questions. You know, they're not gonna have this kind of coverage, you know, in rural Arizona, right? They're not gonna have cell phone towers every 100 meters up, you know, in the Grand Canyon or in the Navajo Nation. That isn't this proliferation primarily for urban areas, like for the Internet of Things, or will this actually help rural Arizona improve their connectivity?
That was a selling point in congressional hearings, which I have followed, like the Senate Commerce Committee. Heard a lot from John Tester, Senator John Tester from Montana, who constantly refers to the fact that he is not getting wireless broadband services in Montana, so they're behind economically because of it, and they want to catch up. But in fact, the wireless industry has been promoting 5G, but it's a lot of hype. And what's actually happening is they're settling in to remote urban areas where there are lots of well-paying customers who are buying their services, home services involving Wi-Fi and millimeter wave signals for high-speed internet download and so forth. And that's where the customer base, in fact, really is. They've given only lip service to going into remote areas. It'd be a blessing to me if they didn't go, because I know a lot of people in rural Arizona who really do not want to live with this technology. And for many of them, it's for health reasons, because they are sensitive. They can't tolerate these signals. For many of them, that's why they moved there in the first place, to be out of the way. And so where are they going to go? And where are people going to go that just prefer not to live with high tech in their lives?
Well, I would think it would be an enormous amount of blight out in those rural areas. I mean, that begs for a new way to do this and not towers, right? As Dr. Witte, referred to other ways to do it besides towers. There's things that are underground, but I just don't see this as something that would help rural Arizona improve their connectivity, which leads me to question, why are we doing this still? So, are there other questions? Somebody was asking in the chat, like how to stop this in your lives and how to stop the data harvesting. I was wondering if people wanted to take on those questions.
May I speak to that?
Sure.
Hi, I'm Valerie Marsh, and I've been on this for about 16 months. And Dr. Witte and Dr. Benvenulis, who's just listening to the call, and I've been working with a few people from a website that I put on here called Scientists for Wired Tech. They're also working with the country's expert lawyer, Andrew Campanelli, who he's able to stop 85% of the towers that he goes after. So there are a lot of things that we can do to stop these. Education is really part of it, but the effort to stop the towers being built, there are things like need tests, and I know somebody wrote a controversial letter to the FCC. It's not an immediate thing that they'll stop the tower, but that's an option. With the state of emergency, if councils wanted to decide to put a moratorium, because HB 2365 says we can't do moratoria, but there's a provision, it'd be a fight, but I think the law's on our side. In emergency times, you can only do essential services, and building new towers is not essential. That's a fight that can be taken up. One of the solutions that I've been trying to get the Scottsdale City Council to listen to, and we've had a lot of roadblocks, is I think Russell mentioned this, capping the power. What you need for 5 bars in a cell phone is 1/10 of a watt. These things are putting out 5,000 to 22,000, and he brought up the legislation that says it's from the 1934 Telecom Act that you have to use the minimum amount of power necessary for the desired communication. So that's a battle that can be taken on. Fiber optics is a phenomenal solution. So there are lots of things that the two experts who've been helping us, their names are Paul McGavin and Susan Clark. They're phenomenal, and they're working right now on a donation basis with our little group, with the Prescott group, Tucson. And they're people that I think need to get before you. And it's a long conversation. I've got a few PowerPoints that kind of go through the different solutions we can do. Anyways, it's a big conversation. I want to thank you for bringing this to the state level, because we have local control. That's the other thing. Just one more point, and then I'll pass it on to you. The preemption clause that says you can't regulate on the basis of environmental effects. Our understanding is that that's not the same as health effects, because health is what's inside you. The environment is what's outside you. The environment might affect your health, but they're very different things. So the legal plain reading of that is environment, not health. Now, there was one judge in the Second Circuit Court who gave a bad interpretation. And so instead, he said, for us, that includes health effects. Environmental effects is health effects. So the wireless industry, that's their crown jewel. They love that. But we are in the Ninth Circuit Court. We could fight that too. It'd be a fight. The nice thing is, if we fight, the FCC, or I'm sorry, the wireless industry cannot go after us for monetary damages. We'd have to pay our own court costs, but we don't have to pay theirs. So that's like, I think 5 ways that we can fight this, but there are a lot of nuances to it. So that website and those 2 people, and then if we can get Andrew Campanelli in, I think we have a big chance. And because we are the first smart city, smart region, our data isn't just going to go, here it's going to go to 22 cities and China. I mean, the world's kind of watching Arizona. We're going to be like the kingpin domino. And if we get away with it here, the whole world's going to follow suit. So the fight right here is really the epicenter.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and for chiming in. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that when we passed 2365, that we were the first state to maybe do this, or one of the first. And so, yeah.
And it's the worst. It's
Oh,
the
great.
most limiting. We might be tied for number 2 spot, but yeah, it's really bad.
Okay, all right. So I think that this meeting has been great, and I think it's the beginning of a conversation, you know. I do think that there was a data privacy question that I would like Representative DeGrazia to chime in on if he's still here. Somebody said, what can they do now to block this data harvesting? Is there something that they can do in their own lives?
Yeah, but remember that just about everything that we touch now, everything that's electronic is generally sending information back. A lot of us grew up in the days where you would drive down the road listening to an FM radio where it was completely a one-way transmission. You could listen to the radio and nothing went back. But now if you listen to Pandora, if you do anything on the internet, part of your information either via cookies or just location data from your phone is being sent out. So the only way to be completely off out of that harvesting is just be completely off the electronic grid. Now, the good thing is that data does have a lifespan. It tends to go bad, so it becomes useless to advertisers. But we need to take up this discussion about 5G towers, about where our data is going, about smart cities, about IoT devices, about the connectivity of, like was mentioned in the chat, Elon Musk and his satellites, how we're using all that. We need to have front-end discussions in our communities about how we want this information used, and then go to providers and manufacturers and say, this is what we'll allow. Right now, we're just being steamrolled. They put out these towers. We don't know the health effects. We don't know where our data is going. It's likely being aggregated and used in bad ways against us. So we just need to have more discussions on it more often and more thoroughly.
Thank you. I was going to say, Councilman Kozachik, do you want to make a comment here? There was a lot about what's going on in town. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to chime in, go ahead. And we're going to have to wrap this up pretty soon.
Okay, I'll be brief then. First of all, thank you for allowing me to sit in on this. When I write my newsletters, one of the hesitations I always have when I refer to the state legislature and things that they have done in air quotes is because I know that we have allies in the state legislature as well. So when Lois and others are talking about the city has done this and that and this and that, understand also that there are some of us who are totally allied and aligned with the concerns that Lois expressed. I have an October 20th study session that was really generated out of finally becoming so frustrated with the crap that neighbors have had to put up with, waking up in the morning and a backhoe is in the right of way right in front of your house. And I haven't heard about it. They haven't heard about it. TDOT's answer, and it's really wrapped up in the state law, is that small cells are not subject to our zoning as long as they're in the public right of way. And so we have we have to approve within a defined period of time. They affectionately call a shot clock, or the application is assumed to be approved. So there is no public process that's required right now. One of my goals for the October 20 study session is to, in some way, and I'm not quite sure how much table pounding it's going to take, compel TDOT to say, we're not approving a cell tower and we're not giving you a right-of-way permit until we know that you've reached out and had conversations with the people that you're impacting with this. That's not going to affect all the data mining concerns. It's not going to affect all the health concerns. Those are a bigger argument that's happening at the federal, international, and state level. But at the very least, we have to be concerned about blight and the process that's happening at the local level, because that's where people's lives immediately today are being affected. And just reference Lois's slides and you'll see exactly how. When you walk out your front door and you trip over some guy's ped rail, you know, that's quite frankly bullshit, and we need to get our arms around that. And that's what I hope to achieve on the 20th.
Well, thank you so much, Councilman. It's just about 6 o'clock. Are there any other burning questions? Actually, I saw Paul Stapleton Smith has his hand up. Quick question, Paul.
Yes, a quick one, and it's certainly not, it's a larger question. Our interest at AFL-CIO, I was just actually texting you the question so we could pick it up later, is fundamentally in municipal broadband. So here we have these multiple issues in front of us. We want to move towards municipal broadband to help our schools and our businesses and our working families and turn it into what it actually is. Broadband is indeed a utility, right? It's the digital highway. We're in a place of acceptance. We're intensely interested in infrastructure. And I want to understand better how the challenges presented here today, and I understand this was exploratory, how they inhibit or contribute to our goal, our final goal of municipal broadband, and particularly in infrastructure, because every inch we make forward in infrastructure is a win towards our final goal. So that's what I wanted to represent for us.
Who wants to take that? I see Valerie's got an answer in the chat. Anybody else want to say something? Dr. Witte?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I said the wired technology, which is communications, it's telecommunications. We always talk about wireless, but wired is very much part of the Telecommunications Act. So I think that's a great solution. You know, I don't know in terms of the fiber optics and the copper wiring, but I know most of that was built up in the late 1990s. These are assets that the city should have control of. I don't know if they were sold off. We need to find that out, but each of the municipalities and cities needs to find out where those fiber optic networks, which is all part of 5G. It's just a matter of putting a tower, intercepting it, rather than playing it all the way to the residents and businesses. That's what we need to talk about. So that's one of the things that I listed. I do want to just emphasize the fact that the Communications Act specifically says local control of operations of all the towers. That has never been taken away. And if HB 2365 affects that in any way, then it needs to be repealed because it was never in line with federal law. So we need to look at that. But operations, if local council will just take control of what they already have, that has never been taken away, they can have a big impact right now on the levels of microwave radiation coming from these towers. So that's really one of my big messages today.
I think that's great. I think it's a good ending time. I didn't realize that we were going to go to 6 o'clock. I think we had some great discussions, and I think that this, should continue. There were some people who might wanted to get into this and couldn't because of sort of the late notice. But the people who came in, you guys stuck with us for the whole time, essentially. And so anyway, I really want to thank you all. We will be continuing this. Emily has the list of emails for everybody who was on the call today. And so I think we'll be doing more on this topic because I think there's still a lot to unpack. And I think that this is something that, in my opinion, regulatory affairs should look at in 2021. And so thank you all and have a good evening. Good night.
Thank you, Pamela.
Bye-bye.
Bye.